and you were like, hey, so do you want to go to Europe for 6 weeks? And it was a bus tour on a bus with Agnostic Front. Mind you, Agnostic Front's one of my favorite bands. And I was like, yes.
Arguably, if not for Agnostic Front, there's no Death Before Dishonor.
Oh, absolutely. It was a bad fight. Then the venue like banned us from life. Our band. But
Banned from a city. I feel like we should have made a T-shirt about that.
We should have.
This kind of goes into one of my favorite stories about Death Before Dishonor, because we get the CDs.
Yeah.
And at the time, this is like late 2004,
Yep.
beginning of 2005, we would send these promo packages to Ono Chromag, who rest in peace, who worked for like a big magazine,
Art
and
Shock,
in Holland,
Yep.
and worked a lot of big festivals.
Yep.
Was very involved over there. But he would, we'd send him just whatever we were up to, and I remember he reached out to me,
Yep.
and he was like, "Is Death Before Dishonor available to come to Europe?" Because I think Agnostic Front was on tour.
Yep.
Terror was a support band for them, if I remember. And then Terror dropped off for some reason.
Somewhat last minute.
Yeah. And he hit me up and was like, he'd been listening to your CD
Yep.
and thought you'd be a good fit for Agnostic Front, and was like, can they get here? And I think it was like in like 2 weeks or something. Tell me about your experience being like, going from a band that has never played more than, you didn't play more than a week of shows, right?
No,
at the
never,
time?
Never. We did 1 week on the West Coast, and that was like, was it even 7 shows in a row? I don't even remember.
Yeah.
But no, never.
So to Agnostic Front saying, basically them, saying, hey, can you come for 6 weeks in another country? Had you or anyone been overseas at that point?
Actually, I went to Ireland with my parents. I don't know if anybody else had. Nobody in a band by any means. Nobody's ever played a show over there.
Did anyone? I remember the passports being an issue, and
passports.
like how did you? What hoops did you have to jump through?
Something going on. I just remember. I think you called me. I don't know. I just remember you being like, "Hey, so I got this call. So Terror definitely. It was the tour was a unity tour. It was Agnostic Front, Terror, and Diecast. And Terror had canceled like somewhat last minute. Let's say it's like 2 weeks. It definitely was like less than 3 weeks and not a week, but right in between. And you were like, hey, so do you want to go to Europe for 6 weeks? And it was a bus tour on a bus with Agnostic Front. Mind you, Agnostic Front's one of my favorite bands. And I was like, yes, can we do, like, how, like, and you were very like helpful. You're like, I'll help you out with it. I was like, help me get plane tickets, help me get passports. And we just like figured it out somehow. And yeah, when I say a court case, like I just was like on probation. It was a financial thing. So I had to go to court, pay this off. Well, first this happens. I'm just like, yeah, let's figure it out. And then like calling everybody in the band. I think at the time I was working with my original guitar player. We were like delivering wine together. And I was like, I'll call you back. Kind of called everybody and was like, dude, Europe, Agnostic Front. Everybody was just like, yeah. Frankie, I don't think had a job. Me and my guitar player worked at the same place, but we were willing to quit. And mind you, we actually didn't even have to. Like our manager was like really cool and super supportive. We did eventually have to quit. And Dan was just down to do whatever. Yeah, we were just like, yeah. And then we just figured out. So like, I think you helped get the tickets. You found us some money. And then like we had to have tickets. And I had to pay off the court thing and then go to a passport office in Boston, had one, and it was a bunch of money. And like, I didn't believe this was happening until like the bus showed up. I'm like, I'm going to Europe for
With
6 weeks
Agnostic
with Agnostic Front. And mind you, like One Voice is by far like top 5 favorite records of all time. And dude, I also think this is a Roger thing, but times were kind of different then. We had to bring our heads with us, guitar heads. Like we get hard cases for it, like put it in. Dude, there was so much stuff. We had to bring merch because we couldn't get it printed there. We showed up, the first show was in Amsterdam. And I remember you being like, cheapest flight, flying a day early to Amsterdam. I'm like, oh, poor us. So flying a day early to Amsterdam. But back then it's like, okay, so we're going to we got like no money. We got a hotel and we land in Amsterdam. We got to take a train to the hotel and we're trying to load like literally like 30 guitars, heads, merch bags, and half of us are on the train, half of us are not, and the train just takes off with like half of us and half of us. And we don't have cell phones.
Yeah.
Like, all right, see ya. Next train we get on, we find the band halfway down. Like, this was like an hour and a half process where like now you just be like Uber, taxi, something, and you wouldn't have guitar heads. But yeah, we finally show up to this hotel, and it's like no elevators, 3 floors all the way up, top floor, insane. And the next day we had to lug all our gear like, I don't know, like 4 blocks away, like so. And we got to the venue and the bus was late, and I was like, see, this ain't gonna happen. And then the bus finally showed up. But yeah, it was all insane. Yeah, I remember Roger calling me like 2 weeks before, and I didn't know Roger. I'd seen Agnostic Front a couple times, and he was like, you got to bring your guitar heads and this and that. And he was like really like cut and dry. And I'm like, ooh, all right. And then yeah, 6 weeks on tour, no days off.
Jesus.
In Europe that I don't know. It was insane.
The thing though that I love about that though is like it could have just not happened. Like there's probably 50 reasons why as a band you're like,
Yeah.
we can't make this happen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, like it's too quick. We got to jump through too many hoops.
Yeah.
We've got a court case. We have like, I feel like with the passports, I mean, I feel like that's the sort of thing where you have to get like state reps involved at that point, you know, because it's like so last minute, but you did do it. You made it happen. You got there. And then you were on the road for 6 weeks with a band. Arguably, if not for Agnostic Front, there's no Death Before Dishonor.
Oh, absolutely. And that also turned into 6 weeks in the States.
Yeah, so tell that story.
So while we're there, and mind you, like the first day, like, you know, we meet Roger. He's very like being Roger, like standoffish, but cool, but you know, right to the point. And then I remember, I don't know, we probably sound checked because we opened that tour, and no, they weren't out. But when we went out to go on stage, and these shows were packed. We played the Melkweg, which is like a well-known venue in Amsterdam. It was packed. And mind you, like when we played, these people just stared at us. It wasn't crazy. Merch was insane. People loved us. Like they were into it. But like that first like older crowd in Europe,
they didn't know the songs.
They didn't know the songs or anything. I mean, there's no social media. There's no nothing. There were a handful of people over there that had our stuff from old distros and stuff like that, but like not on the scale of what we're playing. But we sold a bunch of merch. People were super into it, but it was very like, it was very weird to navigate because everybody's just staring at you. You're used to just hardcore shows and getting people to mosh is easy, you know? So, but I remember looking on the side of the stage and Roger and Vinny were there watching and they were just like super into it. And then like literally like a few days later, maybe a week, Love Is Red was on the US tour. So this was when Another Voice had came out and they had already like their Europe and US tours like booked. And so first, you know, Terror ends up dropping and we get that. And then Roger's like, yo, Love Is Red just broke up. Any way you guys can do the US tour? I was like, well, now mind you, like, so it's 6 weeks and I think it's like a week off, tops.
And then it was like another
6 weeks. And like we had a van, but like a conversion van. You don't do a US tour in that. Well, actually, no, we didn't. We figured that out on this tour. So we didn't even have a van. So we were like, yeah, sure. And that took a little bit to do because that was a time of like sound scans. So like their agent was like, what are their sound scans? I'm like, oh, we don't have a record out yet. Remember all this? You had to put out like you said you would like do some advertising on the Bridge 9 board to like get us.
So that was the best part about it. I remember talking to Roger at the time.
Yeah.
And I mean at the time, the Bridge 9 board in 2005.
Yeah.
I mean we had hundreds, if not 1,000 people.
That was definitely
it was
a big thing.
Yeah. So I remember Roger being like, you know, the Bridge 9 board is so important for like getting the word out.
Yeah,
and I think that was a big reason why he wanted Death Before Dishonor. I mean, obviously he like had spent 6 weeks or at the time maybe like a month with you guys.
Yeah.
But then it was like, all right, well, this can help promote the tour.
Absolutely.
It's gonna kind of, you know, help kind of get the word out.
Yeah. So yeah, it ended up working out. It took a little bit of a to do, and then we got on that, and then like came home, bought a conversion van, like cheap, and then bought a trailer with money that we made from Europe. Like Europe ended up being pretty good. I don't know that we made money. You know what I mean? We just went there with like such like brought our own stuff, and it was just like, oh, people never saw us, and we just sold a bunch of T-shirts, and we're like, oh, and the conversion rate was good when we brought it from the States. We're like, this is sick. And when I say bought a van, I mean I don't mean a brand new van. We just bought like a $2,000
whatever you could
van.
afford, just like,
and like a trailer wasn't too bad. And we did that tour, and that was like. So that was an 8-week tour, but we only did 6 weeks of it because our original record release tour was like a month with Blacklisted starting in Florida. And that was already booked. So Roger, we did 6 weeks of that US tour. And that was like, yeah, all that stuff was insane. I mean, that's how we like really learned how to be like a full-time band, a touring band. all those things that you say, like about like a lot of people like probably wouldn't have done that tour. There's a million reasons why it wouldn't have happened. I think that like we've always been very fortunate for opportunities, and all we wanted was opportunities. And like between recording that record and how strongly we felt about the record, having a label, like not that we weren't on a label before with Spook City, it was just like Bridge 9 was doing like a little bit more for bigger bands at the time in hardcore. We just felt like everything was like lined up and these songs were great and it was like a great time. And then when Agnostic Front's like, hey, can you do this? And then for them to like stick their neck out and be like, hey, can you do this? And also like going out there, like playing bigger shows all around the world and getting a response. Like you said, I'm not gonna say every night in Europe was like crazy, but people were into it, you know, and the States was awesome. So like it was a interesting time, and like a Roger and all of Agnostic Front. I shouldn't just say Roger. We would talk a lot about touring stuff and really like taught us a lot. You know what I mean? Like it's weird because it's like, how do you like, they're an actual like touring working band, and then you go out with a band like that. So it's like, we're kind of fortunate enough in a way to like learn a lot of things from like a band that's done it through many different generations. So
yeah, well, that's I mean, with Agnostic Front, you're not going to find a better like fit. Kind of show you what to do.
It's
and
perfect.
Show you the way.
It was definitely perfect. So like, it was an opportunity. A lot of people wouldn't have taken it, and it was a lot of sacrifice to do it. But I think it was like, it was one of the coolest things ever. And on top of that, like, I couldn't have learned from better people. Like we literally learned everything, like from the best to the worst. You know what I'm saying?
Is there any stories from that tour that stand out?
I mean, there's plenty of stories
that you can tell.
I mean,
keep in mind it has been over 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, there was like there's a big fight that we had nothing to do with, but there's a big fight at one of the venues. So when you're on a bus tour, a lot of times the bus will stay overnight. The driver will, sleep till 4, so it won't be till 4 o'clock bus call because the driver can stay plugged into the venue for electricity. And we were playing this like venue in Austria, and it's a big venue, and people were partying and all this stuff, and then there was like a small little bar that's like attached to this complex, and me and Frankie were just sitting on the bus talking, and mind you, a lot of people from the tour were hanging out partying, but we were like, oh, there's a fight outside, this is hilarious. So didn't think it was any of us. Go outside, of course, it's somebody that's with us, you know what I mean? Break it up. It's not anybody in Death Before Dishonor, surprisingly, but they were like, so it was a bad fight. Then the venue like banned us from life, our band. And I was like, why us? We had nothing to do with this. It was just like this crazy story. I don't know. I think they were just mad, and it was somebody that worked there or something.
Have you been back since?
So first they were like, you can never play Austria again. I'm like, okay. And then we did play Austria, but
banned from a city. I feel like we should have made a T-shirt about that.
We should have. But we did go back and play Austria at some point, but we did years later in 2008 or something. Played that venue with Ignite, and everybody was cool. Like I said, I don't really know what happened. The person I was fighting was working for the tour, you know what I mean? And had plenty of justification. But it wasn't that insane, but like whatever. For some reason we got banned from Austria. I'm like, all right, cool. I feel like every night there was something. There's a lot of waking bus drivers up to like, hey, we got to go. And a big white bus 30 minutes later makes a getaway. No one got arrested or anything on that tour. But it was definitely interesting. I think it might have been like, maybe Diecast first time there or something like that. It was just interesting. It was like 6 weeks we played everywhere, like every different country. There was a lot of wild stuff.